Hello friends, welcome once again to this another chapter of Speed Maths by Slidescope. In the previous example, we discussed about quickly solving quadratic equations asked in competitive exams. In the previous part, we did not discuss the shortcut trick or the quick part. We actually discussed the factor method and the theory that can be used to solve quadratic equations. In this part, we are going to discuss about a shortcut trick which can be used to solve quadratic equations very quickly. We will take the same example, this x square plus 5x plus 6 and y square plus 3y plus 2. You have to establish a relationship between x and y. We did that using the factor method in the previous part. Now we will try to get the same example with a trick, and then we will see some other examples as well. Now there is one thing that you have to remember. Suppose B and C are our coefficients. So you can see here B is the coefficient of x and C is the coefficient of x raised to the power 0. So in our standard equation ax square plus bx plus c, if B and C are positive, if the value of B and C are positive, then the roots of equation, because again it's a quadratic equation, so there are going to be two roots, and the roots of this equation are always going to be negative. So there will be two roots and both of them will be negative in this case. In which case when your B and C are positive. So in our given examples, B is positive because it's plus 5 and C is also positive because it's plus 6. Hence the two calculated roots were negative and negative of 2 and negative of 3. Now next thing is, if B is negative and C is positive, so in that case both roots will be positive. So what is the condition for both roots being positive? That is B is minus. So equation can be something like 3x square minus 5x plus 7 is equal to 0. So an equation like this can be there. So in such equation the root will be positive and the two roots will be positive in such equation. We will see those examples also. So this is our second condition. You have to remember this. It's really easy. For positive you will get both negative. It's easy. The main confusion is between this. So plus plus, then minus plus, then there will be plus minus and minus and minus. So these will be our four conditions, and if B is positive, that means something like y square plus 3y minus 2, and C is negative, so you will get minus plus. So remembering this is really easy. Plus minus just reverse, minus plus, and for minus minus it will be, for minus plus it will be just reverse of this, plus and minus. So at first this may look a bit confusing and unnecessary, but if you want to learn the trick, then this thing is really important, because if you have a lot of practice on quadratic equations and you remember this thing in your mind, you are preparing for examinations, if you remember these small things in your mind, so in that case you can calculate the roots in your mind also, and you can actually solve the equations. So if B and C are positive, so both roots will be negative, If b is negative, that means we have minus 5 here. So in that case, we'll have both roots as positive. If b is positive and c is negative, then minus plus. First root will be negative and then positive. And similarly for both negative values, that means an equation like y is square minus 3x minus 2 is equal to 0. So for example like that, roots will be plus and minus. So now we will see some examples and then you will understand how we can use such thing like this. Now first we will have a look at this equation here that we have, this x square plus 5x plus 6. So we can clearly say that 2 and 3 are the factors here, because 1 into 6 is 6, but 1 plus 6 is not 5. We discussed that in the previous example. So the factors here are 2 and 3, right? So first you have to calculate the factor in your mind, you don't have to write this. And then let's say 2 and 3 are factors. Then what you have to do here, you have to simply divide these factors. So you have to divide these factors by coefficient of x square, or you have to divide these factors by whatever value we have for a. And then see here, both b and c are positive here, so roots will be minus minus. So you just have to put a negative sign here, and you just have to put a negative sign here, and now these will be our two roots. Because value of a in this case is 1, that's why minus 2 and minus 3 are our answers. So you just have to find the two factors, then whatever factors you have found, in those factors just write them. The sign you can see from here, the reference you can take from here. For first 4, 5 or 6 or 10 examples, you have to look at this table, then you will get a hold of it and then you will start calculating automatically. So minus 2 and minus 3. I will take another example so that things can become a bit more clear to you. So we have an example here. Let's say 4x square plus, or let's say minus here, 4x square minus 9x minus 9 is equal to 0. This is our quadratic equation. You can pause this video, you can analyze this equation. If you can find out the factors in your mind, it's really good. Otherwise, let's see some examples. So I will separate these examples now. To calculate the factors, first you have to multiply 9 by 4. So that will be 36. I am writing here, but you don't have to write anything. You can do this in your mind. Now, what are some factors of 36? What are those two numbers? When we will multiply them, we will get 36. And when we will add or subtract them, so we will get 9. Because a into c in this case is 36 and b is equal to minus 9. You have to remember b is not 9, b is minus 9. So you have to find a number such that you have to find, let's say u and v are our two factors, or let's say f1 and f2 are our two factors. So f1 and f2 should be such that f1 into f2 should be equal to 36 and f1 plus or minus f2 should be equal to 9. So I will put a minus sign here so that you can see. So f1 plus and minus f2 should be minus 9, right? So let's start with what can be the first factor. Again, first factor can always be 1 multiplied by 36. But again, this will not happen in our case. Second example will be 2 multiplied by 18. Can 18 plus minus 2 be equal to 9? No way. Then increase the value. So increase value of 1, increase the value 1 by 1 here, and then whatever suitable multiple you can write here. It doesn't matter. Now let's take 3 here. So in case of 3, how many times 3 is 36? 12. Can 12 plus 9 plus minus 3 or 3 plus minus 12 be minus 9? Obviously. So plus 3 minus plus 3 minus 12, if you will do this you will get minus 9. Now our two roots are plus 3 and minus 12 and things like that. You don't have to worry about the sign here, you just have to worry about the roots here. So now the second trick is write your roots here, 3 and 12. Now in this case B and C were both negative values, right? In this example which we are covering right now, in this example we have got these two roots, but B and C were both negative. You can see minus 9 and minus 9. So and now you have to divide it by coefficient also. But before, what is our coefficient? Our coefficient is 4. So you have to divide these values by 4 to get the final answer. We did that here also. We divided by A, right? A here is 4. If you will compare this with this standard equation, A will come as 4. Now the next thing is, because 3 is written here and 12 is written here, and you have to provide a positive and negative sign, but the positive sign will be provided to the bigger digit or bigger number, we can say. And so 12 is greater than 3, that's why positive sign will go to 12 in case of both negative. So I will write it here also, greater number gets plus sign, because roots will be positive and negative. So in this case roots will be positive and negative, but how can we decide? We have two numbers, right? 3 and 12. How can we decide which one is going to have positive and which one is going to have negative? So in this case, in this example, I will put it in a box. You can take a snapshot of this particular thing. You can write it down somewhere. Greater number gets positive sign. So that's why positive sign is added to 12 and negative sign will be added to minus or 3. So it doesn't matter what roots we are getting. We have to add these signs in this way. Now next thing is, you have to divide them by 4. So you have to divide these values by 4. And how can you divide? When you will divide them by 4, so the final answers will be minus 3 by 4 and plus 3. And minus 3 by 4, minus 3 by 4 and plus 3 will be your roots. So you just got the factor. Factor are 3 and 12, which you find out. You did 1 into 36, which you don't have to do at all. 2 into 18 you also know is not going to work. So you have to start from 3, and again after some practice you will be able to do it on your own very easily. So you can see in this example, because both negatives were here. There is another example in which B is positive and C is negative. So let's do an example where B is positive and C is negative. So now let's consider this example. In this example, have a look at this sequence. So plus and minus is our sequence. Now compare it with this. In case of plus and minus, we get one negative root and one positive root, right? In case of minus and minus also, we get one positive and one negative, but here the bigger digit is positive, and in this case the bigger digit or the greater number gets negative sign. So greater number negative. So we will see this example and then you will very easily understand. So now let's try to calculate this as quickly as possible. So again, what to calculate the factor, first we have to multiply 12 and 2. So when you will multiply 12 and 2, so you will get 24 and 24, right? So 1 into 24 we cannot take it. 2 into 12, obviously we can take it, because 2 into 12 is 24 and 12 minus 2 is 10. So 12 and 2 will be our roots in this case. Now because 12 and 2 are our roots, we have to divide these roots with the value of a. The value of a in our case is 2. So 2 and 2. So our roots will become 6 and 1. Then with the greater number gets negative. So minus 6. So minus 6 and 1 are our roots in this case. So in the previous example we had minus 3 by 4 and 3 and minus 6 and 1. So now in the question you can compare these numbers and then you can get answer. So we can write minus 3.4 as minus 0.75, and we can write, so first write it this way: minus 0.75, 1 minus 0.75, then minus 6, then you can write, first let's do this much only. In this case 1 is greater than minus 0.75 and here minus 0.75 is greater than minus 6. So you can see in one option we are getting greater than sign, in one option we are getting less than sign. So in such cases you simply have, now you don't have to calculate further, you simply can take no relation can be established. No relation in this case, because in the previous example that we did, you can see here, in the previous example you can see all these inequality signs were either greater than or they were equal. So they were less than or equal, hence y is greater than equal to x can be a relation. So you have to watch your options are also carefully. In this case you can see minus 0.75 is less than 1, obviously. Now let's take one more example. We will try to calculate its root. So in this case let's just change the signs. So instead of plus minus it will become minus and plus. Now this is the same equation but with change, signs are just changed here. I will put a boundary here so that we can separate the answers. Now look at this table here. So in this table you can clearly see in case of minus and plus when b is minus and c is plus, roots are both positive. Now in this case 12 into 2 is 24, we know, but let's say 2 and 12 are our factors, 2 and 12. But how will you write 2 and 12 in such a way that by either adding 2 with 12 or subtracting 2 with 12 you can get minus 10? So factorization will not be possible in this case, and with 3 and 8 we cannot get 10, but with 6 and 4 we can get. So with 6 and 4 we can get 24, and we can also get 10 because we will get minus 6 and minus 4 here. But we don't have to worry about the rules, we about the signs, we just have to worry about the factors, and then we can divide this value by the value of a, that is 2 here in both cases. So one root will be 3 and other root will be 2. In this case we don't have to write plus plus because it doesn't really matter. You can see in case of minus and plus. We will do another example of this minus and plus, and the example is x raised to the power of x square minus 5x plus 6 is equal to 0. Now in this case you can see it is 6 here, we know that it is 6 here because first you have to multiply the coefficient of x square with coefficient of x to the power 0 or c with a. So multiply c with a, you will get 6. Now again minus 1 and minus 6 cannot make this. So but minus 3 and minus 2 can do this. So if you will try to factorize it, because there is a simple trick that is hidden here. So it will be something like x square, sorry, x square minus 3x minus 2x plus 6. In the previous example you saw that minus 6x minus 4x plus 12. So when we get this case where b is negative, so in most of the cases you will see that we have negative sign here. So we can take x common here, so it will become x minus 3, and then we can take minus 2 common here and it will become x minus 3. Hence one root will become x is equal to 2 and the second root will become x is equal to 3 in this case also. So when it comes to equations like this where b is negative, so you just have to find that number which has a sum of this and which has a multiplication of this. So which has a multiplication of a and c. 6 into 4 is 24. It has the same multiplication value as a and c, and it has a sum of this. So now when we have got these values, we can compare it with the above given values. So suppose you have to compare values of these two equations. So in this case, look, we are getting 3 and 2, and in this case also we are getting 3 and 2. So the answer will not be x is equal to y. Again, people, sometimes students do that type of mistake. Answer is not x is equal to y because both values are equal. What have I told you? First write both values of x, then write both values of y, and then compare them. So with 2 you have to first compare 2 with 2, you have to first compare 3 with 2, you have to compare 3 with 3, things like that. So, or you can write it like this also. Instead of this, first write both values of, first write x as 2, x as 3, then do this and 3. So sometimes you will get negative, that means y is greater than x. Sometimes you will get x is greater than y, and sometimes they are equal. You can simply write x and y here so that there is no confusion. This is x, this is y. Y has value 2 3 and 2 3, x has value 2 3 and 2 3. So you can see sometimes x is equal to y, sometimes x is less than y, sometimes x is greater than y. Hence, as per the given examples, you have to choose the correct answer. So this was some discussion and tricks that are related with quadratic equations. These are really shortcut tricks. In case of both positive, you will get both roots as negative, so it becomes really easy to understand. And in case of both positives, your factors will also be positive. So if the if a multiplied by c is 6, then you have to think about that particular number, by adding which we get 5 and by multiplying which we get 6. In this case also, a multiplied by c is 2, and because a multiplied by c is 2, so then you have to get some number here. So in this case you can see we have positive sign here and b is greater than the given product. So in that case it really becomes easy that you have to get something 2 plus 1. So 2 plus 1 is 3 and 2 into 1 is 2. So you can get this value also, and that's why we got the roots here. And similarly here we saw an example where we had 4x square minus 9x minus 9. 9 into 4 is 36. Here we have both negative values. In case of both negative values, our root will be one root will be positive, one root will be negative, but greater number gets positive sign. So you just have to get the factor right? So 36 is your a into c, and now you have to make you have to get a number adding or subtracting which we can get 9, and by multiplication we can get 36. So we got 12 and 3 here. So we started with 1 into 36, which can never be the answer. 2 into 18, which will not be an answer in this case. 3 into 12 was our answer. So we don't have to worry about the sign here. We just wrote 3 and 12 and just gave the positive sign to 12 and then divided the numbers by 4. Again, with some practice, it is really easy. Many people try this shortcut trick, and they calculate these examples easy in many government jobs and examinations. So in many government jobs and examinations, you will see that you get 5 questions of quadratic, or 5 questions from this chapter, quadratic equations, and that are these 5 questions are really easy. You can get these 5 marks very reasonably and quickly. So you can do that in 2 to 2.5 minutes. So again, you must have some practice. Now there will be some cases, there will be some examples in which you will not get factorization, or you will not be able to get factors. So in some cases, if factorization is not possible, if you are not able to do that, then the Dharacharya formula or the quadratic formula you can use that formula, but again it takes time to calculate. So you can skip such questions also, because in the same time you can attempt other questions. But most of the questions that you will get, in that you will be able to find these factors quickly, and you just have to find that factor, and you just have to apply this thing here, that if it is plus plus, both roots will be negative. If it is minus plus, both roots will be positive. Plus minus, it will be minus plus. Greater number will be negative, and minus minus plus minus. Again, comparing negative values with positive values. So you don't have to calculate up to that decimal point. You know that positive value is always going to be greater than negative value. So in such cases, you will be able to find the relation without calculating down to the decimal point. For example, we have written minus 3 by 4 here and plus 12 by 4 here. So we don't have to calculate further. We can do this. So because we can compare a negative number and positive number easily. Again, you have to do some practice, and let's see how it goes. If you like this video, please share it with your friends also.